Hello, I'm Tari. Welcome to my channel. This is the part 2 of the beaded necklace. Please check out the part 1. So I have made a lot of progress. I'm almost done. I just have a few lines to go, as you can see. And then I will be done. But I just thought I would show you how to finish it off. So remember, we left a tail at the beginning. We need to put clasps at the back. This is going to be the back. These two ends will be the back. So we need some clasps so that it joins nicely. When you wear it, it just sits perfectly and in place. So I have threaded another needle, a small needle, and I'm going to join these two ends together, these two tails. I'm just making a simple knot, and it should go all the way to the bottom. If you leave a tail that is long enough, you may not have to do it exactly the way that I am doing it. It's just that my tail is a bit short. I should have thought of this at the beginning, to leave a tail long enough to work with. So now I'm just going to make knots with these tails on this piece here, and then I will work with the new thread to make a beaded ball. And on the other side we're going to put a clasp. We're going to put loops. Yeah, we're going to have a loop here and a beaded ball on this side. So now I have threaded the tails, and I'm just going to put my needle through these first two beads like that to start making knots. My needle goes underneath that thread that is in between those beads, and I'm going to put my needle through those loops slowly. I pull the threads. I hope that is visible, but then I explained this process in the previous video, so I hope this is not too hard to understand. I hope it's very easy to understand because I demonstrated this process before. So I'm just making another loop here, and now I'm just going to put the needle through these two beads here, let it come out through the other end, and I'm going to make a couple of knots here. So this is just to finish off that tail that was sticking out here. It's just to finish it off, make sure that it's neat, and so that the thread will not begin to unravel and mess up the piece. There. All right. So now that I am done, this thread does not matter. I will cut it off a bit later when I'm cutting off all threads. I've just been working and not making any, and not cutting off the threads. So now I'm going to start picking beads. I'm just going to pick a couple of beads, and then the third one is the one that I'm going to cover with seed beads so that it's a bit bigger and so that it will hold well on the loop. So now I'm going to start covering this last bead with some seed beads. I'm going to start off by picking 6 beads. If you're not very sure about what to do with the bead ball, I have a video on this kind of bead ball. So I'm just going to put my needle from underneath this bead. I'm covering this last bead here. So I've picked my seed beads. Now I'm putting my needle through the bottom, coming up, and I'm going to pull like that. That's the first step. And I'm going to pick 6 beads again. I've picked my 6 beads, and then on this part, keep holding the thread so that it does not become loose. We don't want any gaps in between these beads. So I'm going to repeat the process. I'm going to take my needle and put it through the opposite side. The thread came out from this end, so the needle goes in from the bottom and out through the top. I pull the thread tight. There. So I have 2 lines. I'm going to pick 6 beads again, and I'm repeating the process. So I'm going to do this 4 times, and then I'm going to reduce the number of seed beads that I am picking. Now I have made 4 lines with my seed beads. I'm going to reduce the number to 5 beads at a time. So I've picked my 5 beads and I'm going to add them on. I'm going to keep wrapping this bead with smaller beads, and the fewer beads have to sit in between the lines with the 5 beads have to sit in between the lines with the 6 beads. So I've added this line here with 5 beads. I'm just going to move this one next to it so that it is in between those lines. And now I'm going to pick 5 beads and repeat the process. So yeah, that is how it goes. You keep picking beads and adding them on to cover this bead until it is completely covered. You keep reducing the number of beads. I'm just going to pick, I'm going to make 4 lines, picking 5 seed beads, and then after that, if there are still some gaps, I will reduce the number of beads that I'll be picking. Alright, so I made 4 lines covering my bead with 5 beads each. I still have some gaps, so I have reduced my number to 4. There. I think I can just add 2 or 3 beads, and then this will be completely covered. Almost there. So I added 3 beads and my bead is completely covered. My plastic bead is completely covered. So now I'm going to work and come out through this bead here on the fourth line. But before that, I'm just going to secure the threads by putting my needle through the beads that are already covering the plastic bead. Just randomly, any line, you put your needle through those beads like that to make sure it is all tight so that we don't have any loose strings. Now that I am at the bottom, I'm going to put my needle through the plastic bead. Like that. Pull my thread, let it come out through the other end. There. And I'm just going to do what I just did one last time. Just through any line, I put my needle through the beads and out. So now I'm going to take my needle and put it through those 2 beads that we added. I pull my thread, and then through the beads that are on the neck piece. I pull my thread tight. The first 2 beads on the neck piece, the needle goes through those 2 beads, and we are going to turn there. So now I'm going to put my needle through these 2 beads, let it come out through the other side, and because we have I have a bit of string sticking out, I'm just going to make a couple of knots to make those threads lie down. So there is my first knot. Just be careful, try and do it slowly so that you don't have more threads sticking out. So I made 1 knot there. I'm going to make another one. There is my second knot, and I pull tight. Now I'm going to put my needle through these 2 beads. I pull my thread tight, and now I move through these 2 beads and let it come out through there. Alright, so my needle came out through this bead. Is the on the 4th line from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to repeat the process that I did here. I'm going to add 2 beads, and then the 3rd one I will cover it with small beads. Alright, so I made another bead ball here. So I'm just going to maneuver my needle through these beads, and I'm going to make more of these. I think I'll make 3 more at this point here and 1 right at the bottom. Yeah, I'll make 3 more, and then we'll move to this side and make the loops that will go hand in hand with the bead balls. So now I'm going to show you how to make the loops on the other side to go hand in hand with the bead balls. I've threaded my needle. I'm just going to start off at this point in between these lines. I'm going to start off by making knots there. So I've just put my needle underneath that line, those threads. I pull my thread. I'm going to put my needle underneath the lines again, and then I will start making knots. So I'm putting my needle underneath the threads that are there, and then my needle goes through that loop. I pull, and there I have my first knot. I'm going to do it again. Okay. I hope you can see the loop. It may be a bit difficult because I'm using black thread and the beads are black, but there really isn't anything to it. I'm just going to put my needle through that loop, and I pull. I pull tight. So I have left a tail, and I'm going to use this tail to work in another direction, and I'm going to make more knots to make sure it is really secure. But for now, I'm just going to put my needle through the beads and let my needle come out through this end, then I will start adding beads. So I'm putting my needle through this bead here. I'm using the third line first. And then I'm going to put my needle through these two beads here, the first two beads on the second line from the top. I have some thread sticking out here. I'll have to make sure I neaten that. And now I'm going to put my needle through these two beads like that. And I pull my thread. Make sure everything is looking neat. So now I've picked some seed beads. I have a total of 30 seed beads, and I'm going to divide these seed beads. I'm going to leave 10 for the second loop. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. This will be for my second loop. 2 beads to separate them, and the others will be for my first loop. So I'm just going to put my needle through these beads, these 2 beads. I pull my thread to make a loop, and I'm going to test out my bead ball and see if it can go through. Okay, this is way too small, so I need more beads. So I picked more beads, and I have left 13 for my second loop, 2 to separate the 2 loops, and 26 for my first loop. So I'm just going to put my needle through those 2 beads that will separate the loops. Pull my thread, and I'm going to test it out and see if it is big enough for the bead ball. And it is big enough. So that is the number that I'll be those are the numbers that I'll be working with, 13, 2, and 26. So now that I have 13 here, I need to pick 13 more for the second loop. This is my first loop. Now I need to make another one. I've picked 13 beads for my second loop, and I'm just going to put my needle through these 2 beads. And like I did with the first one, I'm just going to test it out and see if it's big enough for the bead ball. So I take the bead ball, put it through the loop, and it is okay. It is big enough. In fact, I think I need to reduce beads for the second loop. It's a bit too big. So I have reduced my beads, and my loops are much better. My second loop now is much better. As I always explain, this part is a bit of a trial and error. If your loops are too big, you have to reduce the number of beads you have. If they are too small, then you have to add more beads. So now I'm just going to make some knots here in between the threads to finish off this part. So I'm just going to make a couple of knots. That's one. I'm going to do the same thing. Put my needle underneath that thread that is in between the lines. Put my needle through the loop, and there is my second loop. So I'm just going to put my needle through this bead. I'm going to make some knots to make these strings that are sticking out lie flat. So I'm just going to put my needle through these two beads, let it come out through here. I will make some knots, and then I'm going to make another loop here at bead number 4 on the 4th line to go hand in hand with the bead bowl that is on this side. It is on the 4th line, so I need to count until I am on this part, then I will make loops to go hand in hand with that. All right, it's been quite a battle trying to get those threads to be flat, but I think I did all right. So now it is time to make another loop to go hand in hand with the bead ball on this side. So that is how it goes. You just keep making loops to go along with the bead balls on the other side. So that is all. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you found it easy to understand, and please consider subscribing. I'll see you next time. Bye.